Today's video is on Phylum Echinodermata. Echinoderms are your starfish, your sand dollars, anything like that. Why is my video not on top? Movie recording, float on top. Full screen, okay. It's not working like it's supposed to. All right. So all of them are marine. Everything in Echinodermata is marine. They're known as spiky-skinned animals. They have an endoskeleton, which is made of calcium plates with protruding spines. It is Phylum Echinodermata are sea stars, brittle stars, sand dollars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers. They undergo metamorphosis. So they start out their life as a bilateral free-swimming larva. So the same thing that Phylum Arthropoda do. Phylum Arthropoda started out their life as free-swimming larvae, and then they underwent metamorphosis to benthic animals or planktonic animals. These guys do the same thing. They start as free-swimming larvae. They are bilateral. They go through metamorphosis and they become sessile or sedentary adults. They can move, but they can't move very fast. The adults in this phylum have pentaradial or radial symmetry. So besides the jellyfish, these are the only guys that have radial symmetry. They are a coelomate, so their organs are completely surrounded by mesoderm. As adults, they breathe through skin gills, and they're capable of extensive regeneration. So we're currently looking at platyhelminthes, which have the ability to regrow a head or a tail. These guys are able to regrow arms after they're ripped off. The first class we're going to look at, so kingdom, phylum, class. In Arthropoda, we looked at class Crustacea. We're going to look at a few classes in Phylum Echinodermata just because the classes are so different. The first class we're going to talk about is Crinoidea. These guys are sessile and they're known as sea lilies and feather stars. If you look at them, they actually look like a flower with a stalk on them. They're not. They are an animal. They have a long stalk with branching arms that attach them to the rocks in the bottom. They can detach and move around. Their mouth and their anus is on this upper surface in the center right here. They can have 5 to 200 arms that have sticky tube feet. Those sticky tube feet help them to capture food. They are filter feeders and take in oxygen. And they are common in areas with strong currents because of their need to feed, right? They're filter feeders. The stronger the current, the more food that's going to wash by them, the happier they'll be. Class Asteroidea. These are usually sedentary. These are your starfish. An aster is another name for a star. An asterisk is when you put a star by something. Asteroidea are your typical starfish or sea stars. They're usually sedentary. They live along shorelines. They can come in a variety of colors, a variety of shapes. They prey on bivalve mollusks. So their main meals come from bivalves. This is a picture of starfish eating the bivalves. So you can see right here where they're actually pulling this bivalve apart. They have 5 arms that can be regenerated, and they project from a central disc. And their mouth is the same thing as their anus, and it is on the oral or their underside surface. So starfish can range in size from 1 centimeter to 1 meter big. Their mouth is located on this oral surface right here. Right here. They have an endoskeleton made of calcium plates. They have sharp protective spines made of calcium plates called ossicles found under the skin on the top surface. So when you touch them, they actually have these hard projections on them. The aboral surface has tiny forceps-like structures that surround their spines to help clean their body and keep them clean. They have a nervous system, but they don't have a head or a brain. They have no circulatory system, no respiratory system, or no excretory system. They have a network of water-filled canals called the water vascular system. And those water vascular canals have a ring canal around the middle and radial canals that come out. These put water into the tube feet and allow them to suction on. It helps them to move and it helps them to eat. They have a one-way digestive system. Think about, again, a jellyfish. It goes in one hole and it comes out the same hole. They do have separate sexes. but they can reproduce sexually and asexually. So this talks more about the water vascular system in starfish. It's a network of canals that creates pressure to help the starfish move. It essentially, the water is in these radial canals and it connects out, or in the ring canals, it connects out to all the radial canals, and the radial canals are connected to these little bitty tube feet on the outside. The radial canals carry water to the tube feet, and the ampulla on the tube feet contract and create suction, and it allows things to suction cup and pull off. If you've ever had one of those, think about like those little cups that you had when you were a kid, kind of, and you smushed them down to the table, and then you waited and waited, and they slowly pulled up until they finally popped and pulled off. That ampulla works the same way. So water can push into it, and it can suction cup, and then when the water pulls away, it releases its pressure. So here you can see where the water is extending and making those tube feet suction. The starfish turns its stomach out through its mouth and inserts it into prey. That's how it eats. So it actually puts its stomach inside the bivalve and then eats it in the bivalve and then pulls it back in. So it digests the bivalve partially inside of the bivalve's own shell. And then once it's partially digested, it pulls it inside the starfish and completes digestion. They have coelomic fluid, so the same thing that you're going to see in roundworms with that coelom fluid. That's going to bathe their organs and distribute their food and their oxygen. They have a nerve ring. They have eye spots on the tips of each arm, so they are able to detect light. And their tube feet do respond to touch. Class Ophiuroidea. These are the largest class of echinoderms, even though these are probably the echinoderms you've never heard of. It includes basket stars, which is up here, and a brittle star on the bottom. It lives on the bottom beneath stones, in crevices, or in holes. They have long, narrow arms that resemble a tangle of snakes. These guys' long, narrow arms actually look like snakes. Their arms readily break off, and they can regenerate. They are much quicker than starfish. And they feed by raking in food with their arms or by trapping it in their tube feet. Class Echinoidea are your sea urchins and your sand dollars. Again, their internal organs are enclosed by an endoskeleton or a test. It's made of fused plates. Their body is either shaped like a sphere in a sea urchin or a flattened disc in a sand dollar. They lack the arms that all the other classes have, but their body is covered with movable spines. They have a jaw-like crushing structure called an Aristotle's lantern that they use to grind their food, and they use their tube feet to move. So here are our sea urchins in the spherical shape. They live on the bottom. They scrape algae to feed, and these long barbed spines make venom for protection. Some of them are venomous. Not all of them are venomous, though. A lot of these guys you can hold in your hands and they're not going to hurt you at all. They can, in fact, move each of these spines individually, just like a starfish can move each of its tube feet individually, but it is extremely slow going. Here's our sand dollars. They have a flattened body. They live in the sand along the coastlines. They're shallow burrowers. They have really short spines. If you were to feel their skin or feel them, it feels like they have, it feels like sandpaper. They feel 100% like sandpaper, and that's those little short spines all over their body. The last class we're going to talk about is Holothuriidea. These are the sea cucumbers. They lack arms, and they are shaped like a pickle or a cucumber, but they are indeed an animal. They live on the bottom of the ocean, and they hide in caves during the day. They have a soft body with a leathery outer skin. They have 5 rows of tube feet that run on the top of the body. 1, 2, 3. Some of them have tentacles surrounding the mouth to help them sweep in water. They have bilateral symmetry. What makes them really cool is these guys can eject their internal organs to scare predators, and then they can regrow and regenerate these structures. These guys also have a symbiotic relationship with the fish that lives in their anus. The fish has actually developed, co-evolved with these guys. The fish no longer has a dorsal fin, so because the dorsal fin can aggravate the sea cucumber's anal tissue, the fish no longer has that dorsal fin, so it can no longer aggravate the sea cucumber. Let's take a look at some pictures and some videos. really quick before I go. So last year in class, we dissected some sea urchins. So I have some better pictures in the pictures on the slideshow for you to look at. This is the exterior of the urchins. So you can see how each of them are connected to this little tube shape. In the very middle here, you can see the mouth. I know, not the best picture in the world, but it's there. All right, so let's go over here to the urchin's intestines. So this is what the urchin looks like when you open it up or when you crack its shell off. All of this yellow stuff you see are its gonads or its reproductive structures. Again, this is the entry point. Down here, you're going to see the intestines. So all of that black stuff down there are the intestines of the urchin. Let's get some better pictures going here. Great. So this is that bony Aristotle's lantern that I talked about that goes inside the urchin. This is where the food is going to enter. It's going to go through this Aristotle's lantern. This is its esophagus. These are all of its digestive tissues. And then if the top of it was still on, it would exit out of the anus of the sea urchin. The rest of the inside of the sea urchin is completely reproductive structures. That's all it is. And this is that Aristotle's lantern from the top. And you can see right here in the middle, that sounded horrible. You can see right here in the middle where the intestines or the esophagus is coming out of the throat and leading down to these digestive tissues. There's still some eggs on here. It's really hard to get it off without damaging the other structures inside this sea urchin. As you can tell, there's really not much to the inside of a sea urchin at all. Let's see if there's any more pictures here before we move on. And there's not. Nope, those are all planaria. So let's go to the internet. So this is the pearlfish. This is where this is the cute little guy that lives in the anus of the sea cucumber. And as you can see, he is completely missing he's completely missing that dorsal fin. So it's beneficial to the pearlfish because it provides him shelter. The relationship may be commensal in which no harm is done to the host sea cucumber, but sometimes the pearlfish can cause a parasite or can be parasitic. If it runs out of room, it will eat away the internal structures in the sea cucumber in order to have more room to live. So in some cases, the animal does become parasitic to the sea cucumber and causes it harm. Let's also look at, last but not least, let's look at a starfish taking a little bitty walk here. So here you can see all of his tube feet moving. So the starfish is simply moving water through his tube feet in order to move across there. And here is a sea urchin moving. To kind of give you an idea, it is super slow, but it can move extremely slowly. If you have any more questions, feel free to send me a message or to get on that Zoom call on Friday. The Zoom call on Friday is just me on Zoom to answer any questions with you face-to-face that you have about class or to talk you through anything. So if you have any more questions, again, feel free to Zoom call me on Friday or feel free to send me a message, and I will feel free to answer them. Hope you have a great day.